So dear aspirants, Baswaraj sir, as you know, is our proud faculty. So Baswaraj sir will be discussing the geography answers.
Okay. So welcome to Vishnu Academy. So if you see the questions of geography, so we can say that they are more factual, and few questions are there which are simple. We can say moderate one, and one or two questions are there which are at difficult level, factual based questions. But on an average, we can say moderate type of questions were seen in the context of geography, right? And most of them were from NCERT and basic facts. The question was, consider the following countries, the map based questions. How many of the above members are the NATO organization? Now here if you see the members of NATO, so Austria and Bulgaria are not the members. So generally when we talk about that, so we have Croatia, which is a member of NATO. And then we are having North Macedonia, which is also a member. Then we are having Sweden, which is also the member of that. And then we are having Bulgaria. So 4 countries are there: Bulgaria, Croatia, Sweden, and Macedonia. Right. So this is based on the countries which have joined NATO after 2023. Right. Then consider the following countries regarding the Andes. Now the moment when you talk about Andes, so remember Andes is a fold mountain, and this is a cordillera mountain which is along the western coast of South America, and this Andes is spread in 7 countries, and the eastern countries, that is Brazil as well as Paraguay, are absent in that. They are the eastern one. So hence it is found in Bolivia, it is there in Colombia, it is in Ecuador, and it is in Venezuela. So remember 7 countries are there. So Brazil and Paraguay are not the part of that. So hence it is only 4 countries. Remember Bolivia, Colombia, Ecuador, and Venezuela. This Brazil is not a part, and Paraguay is not a part of that. Then consider the following water bodies: Lake Tanganyika, Lake Tonlé-Sop, and Patos Lagoon. So this is a difficult one. I define this as a difficult one because you may be knowing this lake as it is referred as a tectonic lake, which is created by the rift of African plate. But difficult to identify these 2 one. So hence it is a difficult one, and hence when you talk about how many of them are in the equator, so none of them. So this is the correct answer. This is difficult one. Next, consider the following statement about the turmeric during 2022 and 23. India is the largest producer and exporter of the turmeric in the world. Yes, of course, if you see the data, it is more than 62% of global production. More than 30 varieties of turmerics are grown in India. Maharashtra, Telangana, Karnataka, and Tamil Nadu are the major turmeric producers. So all the 3 statements are correct here. So all the 3 statements are correct here. Yes. So all the 3 statements are correct here. Next, moving down to the next question. Which of the following evidences of the phenomenon of continental drift theory? Now this continental drift theory is one of the important theory associated with the tectonic perspectives. It is a first systematic explanation about the movement of the continents. Alfred Wegener's proposal, and where he has given evidences like placer deposits are there, rocks of the same ages, coal deposits, fossil deposits. So he has taken 6+ evidences to justify his statements. But the major problem with the theory is the mechanism which he says. He says that the 2 forces, that is polar flaying forces and the tidal forces. And in fact, it was rectified by the plate tectonic theory. Now here, when you talk about the evidences, the belt of ancient rocks in the Brazil coast matches with that of West Africa. This is 100% correct. Because we say the zigs of it. So when we talk about zigs of it, so the parts, the eastern part of South America and the western part of Brazil, they were combined. So the rocks will be of the same ages. Next, the gold deposits of the Ghana derived from the Brazil plateau. So this is referred as the placer deposits. placer deposits. So even today we find that the sources are in South America, but the gold deposits are in Ghana. Then the Gondwana systems, we refer this as tillite deposits. Tillite deposits. The sedimentary rocks of glacial ages we find in Gondwana, that is peninsular part of India, in Madagascar, and other parts of the southern parts. So hence all the three statements are correct here. All the three statements are correct here. Moving down to the 46th one. Consider the following statements. The amount of dust particles in the atmosphere is more in the subtropical and temperate areas than in the equatorial and polar regions. The subtropical and temperate areas have less dry winds. Now, the moment when you talk about such statements, you should understand something about the pressure belts. And this is a region which is called as subtropical high pressure belt. And remember, subtropical high pressure belt is associated with deserts. And it is an area where the descending of the air is there. Right. So hence, descending air. High pressure due to descending air. So this is an area of deserts and arid part. Now any area which is having deserts and arid, so it will be having more amount of dust particles. Dust particles. So when we talk about the regions, subtropical and temperate regions, so it is associated with the geography and the meteorological connections. The subtropical high pressure belts, the western side you will find the deserts are there, and then they are the dry areas. So here we find more amount of dry winds are there rather than less, more dry winds will be seen in. So statement 2 is a wrong statement. So hence statement 1 is correct, but the statement 2 is incorrect. A very simple one. This is from your NCERT. It gives the exact idea why we find dust particles in that region. And equatorial and polar region, they always have the rainfall which is more. At the equator we find more rainfall, and poles we always have cold winds will be there. Now moving down to the 47th question. Consider the following statements. In January in the northern hemisphere, the isotherms. So isotherms are the points or the lines which connects the equal temperature. Bend equatorwards while crossing the land masses and poleward while crossing the oceans. Now the moment when you talk about this, you should remember that regarding isotherms, in the month of January, so 2 months are taken. One is January, that is after the winter solstice, and one after the summer solstice, where the lag is maximum. So we take January and July as the months where the lag is maximum. So in the month of January, when you talk about the movement of the isotherms, in northern hemisphere, the isotherms bend equatorwards while crossing the land masses and poleward while moving down towards the ocean. So this is correct one. Now rather than that, you can remember that in the month of January in the northern hemisphere, what happens on the land and what happens on the water. So in the land masses, they move towards the south, and in the water they move towards the north. So it means that the statement is correct. And in January, the air over the oceans are warmer. So this is one of the reasons. Many reasons are there. This is one of the reasons. So hence, this is correct. This is not sufficient. This is also correct, but not sufficient to explain. So both statement 1 and statement 2 are correct, but statement 2 does not explain the statement 2. It has many other factors associated with that. Then 48th one. Consider the following statement. In the context of effect of water on the rocks, chalk is known as, now here when you talk about the rocks, it is associated with two parameters, the porosity and permeability. Porosity is water holding capacity, and permeability is where it allows the water to pass through. Now in the context of effect of water on the rocks, chalk is known as very high permeable. Remember, chalk is porous as well as permeable. The chalk absorbs more water also. So it is permeable as well as porous. While clay is known for quite impermeable. So clay is referred as less impermeable, right? So here when we talk about the statements here, chalk is porous and hence can absorb more water. So this statement is 100% correct. Clay is not at all porous. So this is where the problem is. So clay is less porous, less porous. It absorbs small amount of water. It is highly permeable, but it is less porous. So that's why when you talk about red sands or sandy soils of Andhra, the moment when there is irrigation is done, the water percolates downwards. It will not hold the water. If you take clay, sorry, if you take silt, then they will be having more amount. So hence in this case, the first statement is there. And chalk is porous and hence the absorb water. So the statement 3 is wrong. So wherever we find statement 2 and statement 3 are correct, and this is wrong statement. This is wrong. Yes, only one of the statement 2 and 3 is correct, and that explains the statement 1. So this is the correct one. 48C is the correct answer. Now moving down to the 49. Without the following, consider the following statements. Without the atmosphere, temperature would be well below the freezing point everywhere on the Earth's surface. Now this is associated with the composition of atmosphere. Now the moment when you talk about the atmosphere, Earth's atmosphere consists of solid particles, liquid particles, and also we find gaseous. So liquid and solid, generally we combine them as aerosols. So here we are having fixed and permanent gases and variable gases are there. And within those gases, we are having some gases which are referred as greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, water vapor, methane, etc., which are having the capacity of absorbing of the infrared radiations, long wave radiations. So they absorb more amount of long wave radiations, and when they absorb, they tend to become warmer and then they reflect back to the earth in the form of counter radiations. Right, so which is called as greenhouse effect. So ideal proportion of carbon dioxide, ideal proportion of greenhouse gas is required to maintaining the average temperature of the earth. If you remove these, then the temperature would have been very, very less, like that of a moon, where it will be in minus values. Right, so without the atmosphere, the temperature would be well below the freezing point every year. This is 100% correct, because here if you remove the carbon dioxide and all, then the temperature will be in minus values. Heat absorbs and traps by the atmosphere maintains. So here he is talking about the long wave radiations, infrared radiations, more specifically carbon dioxide, water vapor, etc., which are present in the atmosphere, and they absorb these terrestrial radiations in more quantity, which maintains the average temperature. Atmosphere gases like carbon dioxides are particularly good absorbers and they tap the radiation. So generally we refer carbon dioxide as a greenhouse gas. So all the 3 statements are correct here. All the 3 statements are correct here. Now moving down to the last question, 50th question. Consider the following statement about the Rashtriya Gokul mission. Now remember this. This is associated with something called as animal husbandry, livestock resources. Now in the context of India, we are having the leading buffalo in the world. We are second in cattle population. And moreover, when we talk about the cattle population, we are having the indigenous cattle population, and then we are having the exotic breeds, and then we are having mixed breeds also. Right. And buffaloes all are indigenous in the context of India, because their gene pool is confined to India. Now, in the context of the global warming and climate change, right, so the exotic species are the one which are most affected by the impact of climate change, because their gene pool is confined to some other countries and they were more vulnerable for disease. And that is the reason why government came up with the policy in the year 2014 that we have to protect and conserve the indigenous breeds, indigenous bovine breeds, which includes buffaloes, cattle, etc. Because indigenous breeds are those whose gene pool is confined to this country. They have evolved over a period of a time, and they are more strong in the context of fluctuation of the temperature here. Right. So hence this Rashtriya Gokul mission, which was started in the year 2014, it was extended from 2024 up to 2026 by allocating more than 2000 crore rupees. And it is one of the important aspect of the animal husbandry, where they are promoting the indigenous bovine breeds, where they're making systematic approach in increasing their productivity, like establishing of Rashtriya Kamdenu centers, Rashtriya Gokul Gramas, by which they are promoting good varieties of indigenous breeds, like IVF facilities are given. And they are making all such activities by which the indigenous breeds of cattle and also buffaloes are protected, conserved, and they are improved so that the yield capacity of those can increase. Right. So this is something about the the Rashtriya Gokul mission. Right. So both 1 and 2 are correct. Now if you see these questions, they are all associated with current affairs, and they are comparatively not that difficult, except one question which is associated with the lakes, and rest all of the questions you can manage them if you are good enough in NCERT and if you are good enough in your basic perspectives. So I can say that except one question, they are we can say intermediate or of very say easy moderate questions. Thank you.